I was at University College London taking research for a PhD looking at breathing and blood circulation and oxygen delivery in children with cerebral palsy. I moved house, and my next door neighbor, who happened to be a Feldenkrais teacher, came round to say to me one of his patients had just returned, a stroke patient, and he was moving an arm which he couldn't move before exceptionally well. So he said, we ought to look into this. So we traveled to a small business park where a professor, Dr. Philip James, was beginning to attempt a reintroduction of the protocols of hyperbaric oxygen into the UK NHS. He knew it would be quite a haul, but he had set up a small centre there, which was being paid for because Crystal Palace football team was sending their footballers who were hurt, and there was an immediate restoration in their function. So I read up a little bit about hyperbaric oxygen and understood that changes in atmospheric pressure alter the amount of oxygen that is dissolved in the fluids of our bodies, particularly in the blood plasma. There's a limit to the amount of oxygen that can be delivered in the red blood cells. But if you have damaged blood vessels, then the red blood cells take a long time to squeeze through the narrowed capillaries. And the plasma, therefore, goes through and would either create a swelling or would be able to promote the movement of healing oxygen, healing, cleansing oxygen to the site. So oxygen under increased atmospheric pressure was it both nourished, it detoxified, and it healed. So I was already working in different ways with groups of children with cerebral palsy, which was my main focus. And we decided that having spoken to Philip and got to know him, and really we became friends and discussing the possibilities that were beginning to arise to break down the prejudices that neurological conditions were irreversible. So I took a few children down there and we did a small study. They all seemed to do quite well. The stiffness in their limbs began to reduce and their movements became smoother. And I did this also with my own son, Doran, who pointed out to me that he had athetoid cerebral palsy, which creates a shake, and he could hold his hand straight in the chamber without shaking. So this was really, really interesting. And the next step that we undertook, Philip and I, was to go around the country to the multiple sclerosis hyperbaric centers, which were a charitable organization that Philip had set up himself and negotiated with the British government at the time that it was a very, very safe, simple, prophylactic, and you wouldn't need a doctor or any high-level medical clinician to operate it, that anybody could be trained, any sensible person could be trained to operate a chamber and to begin to understand the logics of the protocols behind it. So we did another study which looked fairly successful. And after that, because there was still no particular shift in the NHS towards opening its doors to hyperbaric oxygen again, so I decided I would start in my own house. And I went to Dundee University, where Philip did a further training with me, with his hyperbaric chamber up there. And that was very interesting. So, and I read a lot. And I saw the overlap between what I had already been researching, which was more concerned with respiration and movement, but nevertheless looking very much into the validity of increasing oxygen delivery to areas of the body or brain where it was reduced in often quite subtle, but nevertheless far-reaching ways. So we got a lot of publicity. I delivered a huge hyperbaric chamber into my house. And we were on the television, we were on the local news, we were on the national news. And we, from that, began to raise money very, very easily. I had so many we had 2-page spread in the big English newspaper, the Daily Mail, right? So we got over 1,000 telephone calls in 2 weeks. I couldn't make an outgoing call. I had to have somebody there. I put the phone down, it rang again. Put the phone down, it rang again. So we then were able to raise funds to buy a second-hand chamber, which had been a MS chamber up in Scotland, in Wick in Scotland, and it was brought all the way down and installed in our new centre, and the centre built around the chamber. And then the smaller chamber, which was donated to us, which was essentially a mother and child chamber. And the new clinic was built around the chambers, and there we were. So by this time, I was becoming more and more insightful at the possibilities of using hyperbaric medicine to help children and adults with a very wide-ranging set of problems and diseases, also not entirely physically based, sometimes emotionally based as well. And this linked into their breathing. So the two came closely together. And that was the basis of how we began to develop our centre and why it has thrived. Our centre is in West Sussex, in a town called East Grinstead. It's in a courtyard set back from the road. It's quiet. There's parking in front of the building, and we're actually only 5 minutes away from the main station in East Grinstead. It's a spacious building, so that there is plenty of room for both adults and children to enjoy the therapies without them coinciding too greatly. And I treat both adults and children.